Okay, we're going to talk about oil leaks on a vehicle. I had a question, vehicle leaking oil, dripping from the oil plug, but I want to go ahead and just cover where oil leaks really are the most common areas and where they normally are coming from. This is a 5.3 GMC. Yukon is what I'm using to show you guys, and what we're going to look at is this is your lifter cover, this piece of metal here that goes all the way through to the back. You got your coil packs that are bolted to it. Your oil fill is right here that runs right into it. That is called your lifter covers, and those lifter covers have gaskets. And again, it's the shiny piece of metal, the plate that runs across the side of your motor from the front to the rear of the motor. It's your lifter cover, okay? Those gaskets can leak, and when those gaskets start leaking, you'll see things like, you know, oil and moisture seeping out and getting onto the block of the motor and dripping down, and sometimes it'll drip onto your exhaust and it'll make, you know, the oil burning smell. But it could be your lifter cover gaskets that are worn out, and that's pretty common. You have them on both sides of the motor. Same thing over here. It's a little hard. It's kind of hard to kind of make this out if you're not a mechanic. You know, I can understand you guys kind of scratching your head like, what's he pointing at? But this piece of metal, this plate that runs underneath all this other stuff, basically, is your lifter covers, and this lifter cover has a gasket. So if the gasket goes bad, it starts leaking out oil. A lot of times the gasket will leak in the back. Sometimes the gasket will leak in the front, but ultimately lifter cover gaskets do go bad and they do leak, and so it can pose a problem. Now let's go under the vehicle and we'll take a look at some other possible causes for oil leaks. Okay, I'm now under the vehicle. Excuse me. I'm now under the vehicle, and I'm looking at the oil pan drain plug. And as you see, my oil pan drain plug does have some oil there that looks as if it's leaking. This oil could be coming from a couple of places, actually. The oil pan drain plug is at the lowest point. That way the oil can actually drain out when the mechanics are doing oil changes, or if you change your own oil. You take that plug out and then your oil drains out. It needs to be at the lowest point. That plug actually has, some of them have a little gasket that goes between it, and some of them have a gasket that's stamped into the plug itself, and those can wear out and cause oil leaks. Something real similar to what you see right there. It's not always that though. That oil can be coming from a higher point. Meaning that the actual oil pan, which, you know, is all that metal right here that the plug is screwed into, that is your oil pan. And that oil pan has a gasket where it connects to the bottom of your motor, and it's not visible on this video right now. It's going to be hard to show you guys. Well, actually I can show you where this metal right here, let's follow the metal. The plug's there, the pan is the plug screwed in the pan. We're going to follow the pan and then go up the pan, and there actually is a gasket right in there, okay? And so that gasket actually can go bad, and that gasket will seep out oil. And when that oil seeps out, it's going to naturally run down to the lowest point and drip off. So it may not be your oil plug that's bad, it may be the oil pan gasket that's bad. Another common problem with vehicles is you have what's called a front and rear main seal. That seal is for your crank inside the engine. That engine sits on bearings, and those bearings have seals on the outsides of them. Those seals can go bad, and they're really common to leak. I mean, you can replace front or rear main seals on a vehicle and within just a few thousand miles, and I don't care what anybody tells you because I've seen it many times, they can start seeping oil again. So, you know, as long as it's not leaving big puddles, like I have no puddles underneath my vehicle, as long as you're not leaving big puddles, minor oil leaks isn't a real concern. I mean, you can have them fixed if it's something that, you know, is really driving you crazy and you just have like OCD like that, I guess. But front and rear main seals can cause that. The rear main seal is actually tucked between the bell housing, which is this part here in part of my transmission, and the back of the motor. It's actually pressed into the back of the motor where the crank runs out through the crankshaft bearing, and then there's a seal there. It's called a rear main seal. There's one back here, and then there's one on the front of the vehicle, and I can actually show you the one on the front if I slide up through here real quick, and we're going to look at the front of this vehicle. Now bear with me while I get the camera into the right position here. Now this is your lower crank right here, where your belt runs around this big pulley. That pulley right here at the bottom of your motor, it's actually attached to the crank inside your motor. Okay, and so right between this crank and the face of that motor, let me see if I can get this in here where you can see right there. Okay, you see where this, right here where my light is, and then it goes into this piece here. There's a seal right there, okay? There's a seal right there, and you can see it. You can kind of see it now. It's a black seal. There it is. That is called your front main seal. Those seals are real common to leak also. So it could be a seal, a front or rear main seal leaking. Again, the oil will run down to the lowest point and then drip off the oil pan. Okay, so it could be a combination of things. Those are your most common problems. Mine, actually, believe it or not, why mine is making all this is because I have a oil, my oil pan gasket is leaking up here, and I also, it appears to me actually that my oil filter seal isn't sealed. Now the only real way to tell what is what, like what's causing the problem, is to go ahead and get this cleaned up. And they make degreaser and parts cleaner and all that kind of good stuff. You can buy it from your local parts store. You can get it from Walmart. But you're going to want to be real careful not to get that stuff in your eyes, especially if you're down on the ground and you're trying to spray that stuff and get this cleaned up. If it gets in your eyes, it can blind you. So use extreme caution when using any type of parts cleaner or degreaser. Definitely wear eye protection, and and just be sure you don't spray it and get it blasting back at you, because like I said, if you get it in your eyes, you'll never forget it, and you'll have a story to tell if you survive through it, basically. So but you're going to want to get everything cleaned up. If you can start at the lowest point and work your way up. Start at the lowest point with a rag, and that's what I would do. I would take an old dirty rag or old dirty shirt, and I would start cleaning up at the lowest point. I would work my way back up and keep going until basically I couldn't go any farther. Now you can go to the car wash and you can power wash your vehicle first. You can get underneath there with a power washer and power wash it. You can clean it with rags. You can clean it with degreaser. You can clean it with parts cleaner. Ultimately, what we're going to want to do though is get all the oil cleaned up. That way we can actually see where the oil is leaking out from. Once it's all cleaned up, we're going to start the vehicle up and we'll look underneath there. We're going to start looking for any places where oil's trying to seep back out or run back out. Sometimes you will have a leak that's so slow you won't be able to spot it right away, and it may take a couple hours. Don't leave the vehicle running, but it may take a couple hours before that leak will show itself, and even a couple days sometimes before you'll even be able to spot where the oil's coming from. But just keep checking back on your underneath side of your motor and everywhere you've cleaned up, and eventually that oil will show itself where it's coming from. Once you can see where it's coming from, then you know what you're going after to replace. And again, it's going to be a gasket. Either it's going to be an oil pan gasket, a front or rear main seal gasket. It could be coming from up top, like I said before, from the lifter cover gaskets. It could be the oil plug itself, the gasket's worn out, or it might even be a oil filter gasket. But it's ultimately going to be a gasket that's causing the oil leaking. So I hope this video helps, and please like and subscribe. You never know what I'll upload next. If you got any questions, go ahead and shoot them to me in the comment box, and I'll try my best to get to them. Everyone have a good day. Thank you.